Hello and welcome back into Foolish Club Media. I am Stephen Serda. It's another episode of the Daily Fix on Tuesday, March 18th. Just a little over a month away from the NFL draft, and free agency has slowed down to a snail's crawl, I guess. Not a ton of big name free agents out there anymore. Still a couple of guys that we would like to see the Kansas City Chiefs sign as they look to try to fill out the roster ahead of the NFL draft. But as we continue to get more news, we'll continue to update you right here. So make sure, as always, that you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we're doing right here on Foolish Club Media. Highly encourage you to go check out our new show that we're doing nightly. It's me, Ron Hughley, Osita Nusi. It's the Nightly Fix. We're coming at your way Sunday through Thursday, 10 p.m. right here on Foolish Club Media, as well as on our Twitter and YouTube page. Trying something new, trying to cover a wide variety of topics on the nightly program. So if you like us, if you've joined us for a long time, I think it'll remind you a little bit more of some things that we've done in the past. So highly encourage you to go check that out. We're having a lot of fun doing those on our first week. So go check that out if you can. But today we're going to stick to more Chiefs-related topics and what the Derek Stingley contract means for Trent McDuffie, as we hope to see the Chiefs get an extension done with him this offseason, get out ahead of things a little bit here, like they've been able to do the past couple of years with their big-name contracts. And then after that, it's the defensive line and what is going on with Charles Omenihu. What's happening in that room as the Chiefs look to rebuild and retool there after seeing multiple players exit to the free agent market. And then Patrick Mahomes, fresh cut, creating some buzz. And I think kind of turning the page for the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback in what is going to be yet again another era for the Kansas City Chiefs. But it was announced yesterday, Texans star cornerback Derek Stingley signs a new deal, making him the highest paid cornerback in all of the NFL. It's a 3-year extension and he still was under contract for 2 more seasons with the Houston Texans. So it's basically still a 5-year deal. But now with the new money added into his deal, they're going to tear up that old contract. And basically Derek Stingley Jr. is going to be making $30 million a season, which easily clears the next highest paid cornerback contract. The Broncos got an early extension done with Patrick Surtain Jr., making him one of the highest paid corners in all of the NFL. Then the Panthers topped that with J.C. Horn, making him the highest paid cornerback in the league for about 2 weeks before the Texans got this thing done with Derek Stingley. So I don't think that this is going to drastically impact the Chiefs' negotiations with Trent McDuffie and trying to get a new deal done. And I know a lot of people are like, when is this deal going to happen? We want to see this deal get done. I'm totally on board with that. It is always better to sign your guys early rather than wait. We know the price only goes up, and you see bad teams wait on these kinds of extensions. I think the problem here is that obviously both parties have to agree to an extension. It's not just the Chiefs dragging their feet and trying to be cheap here or whatever. Trent McDuffie has to agree to the deal. And Trent McDuffie is going to want to be paid like Patrick Surtain Jr., like J.C. Horn, like Derek Stingley. We're still waiting on the Sauce Gardner extension with the New York Jets. And you expect Sauce Gardner to come in commanding the type of money that a player like Derek Stingley just got from the Houston Texans. So it's easier said than done. But I think also the problem here is going to be Trent McDuffie's role in the defense. We know the Chiefs just signed Christian Fulton. We know that the best version of this defense probably isn't with Trent McDuffie as an outside corner, just due to some legitimate physical limitations that he has there as a player. I don't think that he can't thrive there. I still think he's that kind of coverage player. He's still that kind of special member of your secondary. But I think that that's going to play an impact here. And I think that the Chiefs, generally speaking, have kind of dragged their feet on some of these extensions. Now, they've been better about it with the young players. Obviously, they let Nick Bolton get into this year, but it was obviously a priority to bring Nick Bolton back. They just didn't they just didn't have the 5th-year option because Nick Bolton wasn't a first-round pick, and so they had to they let him play out the final year of his deal, but then prioritized getting him back into that defensive room and making sure that he was on the roster. to get that done. And I don't think there was ever really any worry that Nick Bolton was actually going to hit the open market. It felt like that was always kind of a logical conclusion that the Chiefs were going to find a way to get that deal done with him. And I think that in relative terms, it's a good deal for the Chiefs overall. They didn't have to make Nick Bolton one of the highest paid linebackers in the NFL to bring him back, but he did get a hefty extension. Now, the Chiefs did do that with Creed Humphrey, and they get that deal done early. Now, and we saw them drag out these extension talks with Chris Jones basically 2 different times, but I think that was a little bit different here where Chris Jones was an older player at that point. Obviously, he's a pass rusher, and he wants to reset the market, and he's not just an interior defensive lineman. Like, he's legitimately one of the most versatile defensive linemen in the NFL, and outside of Aaron Donald retiring, Chris Jones has been one of the most dominant defensive linemen in the NFL over the past several years. So I think the negotiation there was a little bit different. They get the Mahomes deal done early. Travis Kelce's always been the team-friendly guy who's willing to wait and willing to work out deals and basically give up money to help the team out. And Trent McDuffie doesn't need to be that guy. Trent McDuffie is a young superstar caliber player. So I still think this deal gets done. I don't think it's going to wind up being quite what Stingley got, but it's going to be a top of the market cornerback contract. And it's all about, where the Chiefs are willing to go. Now, it's probably going to be a little bit here as, we get into the NFL draft and like these post June 1st cuts and some of those things like hitting the books. I don't know exactly where the Chiefs cap sits right now. I'm not a cap expert like our friend Jared Satt from Arrowhead Pride or John Dixon. But I encourage you to go check out their work because those guys know far more about the salary cap than I do. But I would expect this extension to take a little bit of time here. I don't think it's going to happen within the next few days. So I'm not worried about it. I still think the Chiefs are going to get it done. And if they don't get it done, it's not great. But I don't think we need to hit the panic button here on Trent McDuffie. Like, Trent McDuffie is still going to inevitably wind up being one of the highest paid cornerbacks in all of the NFL. And I think the Chiefs are going to give him that contract because I think that they know he is that vital of a player to their defense. So we'll see how it goes, but I don't think he's going to come in quite at $30 million per season, but I think he's going to get close to it because he deserves that kind of deal from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the biggest question still is this Chiefs defensive line and how they're going to try to fill this out. And I know they brought in Jerry Tillery, which a former first round pick. It is what it is. I feel like Tillery is a decent enough like run stuffer, but kind of a guy that never lived up to his first round hype with the Chargers and has kind of bounced around the league, but has been a fine enough role player. Jerry Tillery's just not a star player or something like that. He's more of like they lose Derek Nottie, they lose Tershawn Morton, these kind of solid role players, locker room guys who have come in and had impacts over the years and who have really made a name for themselves here in Kansas City. Feels like Jerry Tillery is just kind of like a seasoned vet, like another like Mike Pennell type of player who is still out there on the free agent market to fill out that, to try to fill out that defensive line room in a cost-effective way a little bit. But it's still very thin there. It's still easily the thinnest position group on the roster. And Charles Omenihu, for some reason, is still floating around out there. I don't know what the holdup is here. I haven't seen a lot of teams reported to be visiting with Charles Omenihu. I don't know if he's just not getting the type of contract offers that he was expecting coming off of that injury and then not being available until the back half of the season. And, he didn't put up huge sack numbers or anything like that. But anybody who watches the tape knows Charles Omenihu had an impact for the Kansas City Chiefs. The way this is playing out is not what I would have expected, but I think this works in the Chiefs' favor because as of right now, it kind of feels like this is hey, I'm just going to wait and sign. And if I don't get a deal that I want from somebody at some point, then I'm just going to go back to the Kansas City Chiefs on whatever one-year contract that they're offering me. I'm going to go out there, prove it, and then try to hit the market again next season and come up with a big money deal. It feels like that's the way things are going for Charles Omenihu. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we've seen this before, especially with veteran defensive linemen, pass rushers, like guys that are seasoned in the NFL and that aren't necessarily getting what they think they're worth on the open market. Like Charles Omenihu is still a highly effective player. He's still young enough that he should be getting some decent offers, but coming off of the injury, I can see why our teams are like, Well, you're playing next to Chris Jones. Like, are you really that effective of a player? I think he fits perfectly into what the Chiefs do. They need the depth. And so it's just a matter of them trying to work out a deal to make sure he comes back. And the fact that we haven't really heard any buzz about him visiting with a lot of teams and taking a lot of meetings, like, to me, suggests that there's lots of interest from both parties and making sure that Charles Omenihu comes back on a team friendly deal. So I really hope we see that here in the coming days. And I would not be shocked if this happens here in the very near future, or at least sometime over the summer. Like, I do think the Chiefs are going to attack defensive line in the NFL draft. It feels like that's the way this thing is going, but I still don't think that they're above putting more assets into the offensive line and building along the trenches. Like, we saw how effective that plan has been for the Eagles so for the last several years. And it does feel like the Chiefs are going to start taking a little bit more of that approach here. They've already drafted lots of offensive linemen recently that haven't necessarily hit outside of Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey, but they're going to keep investing there. And they need to keep investing in the defensive line because they have to plan for life after Chris Jones. So it's not just a depth issue heading into 2025. It's a long-term issue. Like, there's no long-term plan right now for what happens when Chris Jones starts to legitimately decline. The Rams did an incredible job of doing that, building out their defensive line with tons of young players a year ahead of schedule before Aaron Donald decided to step away from the game. And now they've got one of the best young defensive lines in all of the NFL. The Chiefs need to take a similar style approach, and I think they will do that in the draft. But for the upcoming season, I still think best option is bring Charles Omenihu back, then go out and attack that defensive line room in the NFL draft. Last thing, and we talked about this on the Nightly Fix. Again, I highly encourage you to go check that out. Osita was out last night, so it's just me and Ron, but we'll all three be back this evening. So stay locked in, set your reminders, set your notifications. We'll be back at 10 p.m. tonight on all the Foolish Club media channels. But Patrick Mahomes, he got the haircut a while ago. We've talked about it a little bit. I talked about it on the Nightly Fix last night. And now the haircut is he's making these summer appearances, off-season schedule, out and about, doing whatever, is catching a lot of buzz. And to me, I feel like this is the turning of a page for Mahomes. He said he didn't want to be 30 with the mohawk anymore. And now he's a father. He's got kids now. And he's like, I can't be rocking the mohawk at the age of 30. And so he finally cuts it. And it feels like it's an opportunity for Mahomes to be like, all right, this is a new era of Patrick Mahomes. This guy who has already won multiple Super Bowls, who has won multiple MVPs. And then last season, all of the talk, despite the Chiefs basically only losing one regular season game that actually mattered to them, having the best record in all of football when the games mattered, but because they weren't winning in a way that people wanted them to win, and they weren't winning in blowout fashion week after week, everybody say, oh, Mahomes is on the decline. The Chiefs offense is figured out. They can't move the ball anymore. And it was really more about, in my opinion, offensive line deficiencies and injuries, tons of injuries that stacked up for the Chiefs last season. And the injuries hit them last season in a way they had not hit them in previous seasons. So I do think that the offense would have been different if it wasn't for the injuries last season. But God willing, they stay healthy this upcoming season. I feel like we're going to get a different version of Patrick Mahomes. I thought that last season, but then the Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice early season injuries, and the time that Xavier Worthy needed to develop, the decline of Travis Kelce, it all kind of culminated in the Chiefs having a down overall offensive season, but still being a good enough football team to be atop the AFC and still make it to another Super Bowl. I feel like this is kind of ushering in a new era of the Kansas City Chiefs, when obviously they have to hit on some draft picks and some assets, but they are planning for the future right now. They are planning for the long term. Like, life after Travis Kelce, life after Chris Jones is not that far away. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs are doing that. And some of this is going to be marked by Patrick Mahomes' new hairstyle. And so I feel like we're going to get an MVP run out of Patrick Mahomes in the upcoming NFL season because of the new look. I am ready for the new look Patrick Mahomes to come back out, and everybody who's been questioning, oh, Lamar Jackson's better than him now, Joe Burrow's better than him now, Josh Allen's better than him now, Mahomes has just always been overrated, it's always been because of Andy Reid. I'm just ready for Patrick Mahomes to shut all of those people up and absolutely dominate next season and do it with the new look. This is the fatherhood era of Patrick Mahomes, where he's going to go grab another MVP and absolutely dominate the NFL. So that's fully what I expect in the 2025 season, as long as the Chiefs get the offensive line figured out. And I think they'll be totally fine. But that's all I got for you on today's episode of the Daily Fix. Again, tonight, Nightly Fix, 10 p.m., Ron Hughley, me, Osita. Make sure you're on the lookout for that. We're having a ton of fun doing those shows. So please check those out. We're having tons of fun with that stuff. Rocky Magani and Kramer Sansone will be back tomorrow with another episode of each season, getting ready for the NFL draft. So stay locked in right here to Foolish Club Media, and I will see you guys tonight on the Nightly Fix.